Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Regardless of the race of the Jews, God's spirit is a specific African monotheistic martial arts spirit, and after I'm gone, that spirit will not exist with any human being, and people will never be right with God. So it doesn't matter if the Jews are black or white for this reason. The reason why the race and the spirit and spirits of Abraham and Nimrod matter is because they help us understand what God's spirit is and isn't when you interpret it correctly. Historically, white people confuse what God's spirit is as they confuse people about history in order to control behavior with an emphasis on sexual behavior and marriage. Since God is love, this is very important. Romantic injustice is of the utmost importance. To obstruct romantic injustice and to not emphasize what God's spirit is and isn't is to worship the devil. Central in worshiping the devil is obstructing romantic justice. Confusing it. Use, confuse, and abuse. Where rape is a form of abuse. Rape by deception. Rape by force. These are forms of abuse. And the rapist is confused, and the victim is thrown into a state of confusion that affects her for the rest of her life. Pretty straightforward. People often cite Paul's letters, but then completely confuse what he is saying in regards to what love is. They say love is patient, love is kind. They act like they're talking about puppy love to a couple gay kids in kindergarten. They don't know what love is. Love is derived from justice. Love is intense. How can you sit there and pretend that you're honest? How can you sit there and say that you're honest and say that some shallow preacher or shallow person who's unfocused and would never dream of dying for God, that they feel something as deep that's the same spirit as the top martial artist ever possible? These other people on this planet at this time, so my parents who are old and blameless, they have been subdued by the shallow spirit of the corporate state, the nationalists and globalists alike. They have been subdued by the principles of trickle-down white supremacy and mere shallow white social norms. That's the scale they use. Who lives where, who dates who thinks who's important, what they consider love. It's like it's from a cartoon, Looney Tunes. And as such, they obstruct romantic justice. Paul was not saying that God's spirit is a white Western spirit, a gay spirit, a token minority spirit, a thug spirit, or any other kind of spirit other than the Royal African Falcon monotheistic martial arts order, heterosexual. That's not what Paul was saying. Paul was not saying that salvation is through the Jews. He was not saying that. He was saying that there was a bunch of Jews everywhere that refused to accept Christ was the Messiah, just like they refused to accept the words of God from Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Obadiah and Amos and Zechariah and Zephaniah and Moses, etc. That's what he was saying. He was saying that they refused to do God's work. So we look at Jeremiah 8, verse 8, where it says, "How can you say we are wise, for we have the law of the Lord, when actually the lying pen of the scribes has handled it falsely?" This is key here. The argument being made in Jeremiah is universal and timeless, saying you can't trust the people who wrote the Bible. You can't trust the people who translated the Bible because they're scribes. They're Judeo-European scribes quite often when it comes to the New Testament. And these groups denied Christ to his face in the story. as they do now. And they have a long history of making the same mistakes over and over again. They kept worshiping Baal. They kept rebelling against God. They kept with their sexual immorality. They kept doing the same things, which includes their scribes who kept lying about God to confuse God's message. We know this for many reasons. The fruit of the Bible is the broad road to destruction. If people were obeying God through me, and the government's laws were my laws, it would not be a broad road to destruction. It'd be a broad road to heaven. The masses would find their way there. But when you couple it with these people's philosophies, beliefs, and values, and how Eurocentrism has utterly trampled religion, along with the other pagan forces of the world, the other selfish forces, when you couple that with their emphasis on trampling the human spirit with their false church religions, it is clear cut that I am the way, I am the truth, I am the way love comes into the world. Not the churches, not the corporate state, not you people as individuals. If you were an honest man with 10 children, and 2 people came up to you. One said, I'm the top martial artist ever possible, the only one doing the right thing, and everyone knows it, and you knew that he's right. And another one was an unfocused little girl stumbling in from the woods, saying, I had a vision. Which one would you put your family souls, whose hands would you put your family souls in? Would you rely on your own feeble mind? Would you rely on some unfocused sissy who's happy when they should be sad, who's feeble when they should be mighty? Or would you rely on the one God set apart as embodying the principles of being God's son?